Hi, gentlemen. So, Cab Your Fragrance Guy, back once again. We're going to go through another Fragrance 101 topic today that I know many of you have pondered at some point, in this journey, right? Why do some fragrances they're so much stronger than others? Well, you know the ones I'm talking about, right? The ones that fill the room versus the one that within an hour, it's gone, right? Why? What's the difference? So we're going to break down some of the key concepts of fragrance strength. It really comes down to projection, silage, and longevity, right? We're going to look at each one of those and kind of go into detail about them. But first, let's define them so we've got kind of a base understanding, okay? So let's start off with longevity. So longevity is probably the easiest one, right? So I spray the fragrance on my skin. How long does it stay? Is it gone in an hour? Does it last till tomorrow? So that's longevity. Projection. So think about projection as the bubble around you, right? Your scent bubble, right? How close does somebody have to come to smell you? Do you have to be right up on me? Can you just be on the other side of the room and still smell it? So that's projection. And then silage, right? Silage is more the concept of a scent trail. So think about when somebody walks past you and you get a whiff of their fragrance. Or you walk into, say, an elevator and you know that somebody was just in there with a certain fragrance on, that type thing. That's more of a silage, right? So as it leaves your body. Make sense? Cool. All right, so now that we've got the definitions down, let's kind of look at the components of each one. So let's start longevity being the easiest. Let's start with that. So what makes a fragrance stick around, for hours versus going away immediately? What is that? Why? So first one would be concentration. So if you think about how much fragrance oil is in a bottle, right? We did a video where we talked about, colognes having very little, toilettes having 15 to 20%, I believe it was, parfums having a higher, and extract being even higher. So the more oil you've got in there, the more it's going to stay around, right? The stronger the substance. Think about watering down a glass of orange juice, for example, right? You still, same amount of orange juice, but the more water you put, the more diluted it gets. Fragrance is the same idea, but for a scent. So that would be one. The other on longevity is going to be base notes. So if you think about a base note, the base note are usually the heavier notes at the bottom of the fragrance, right? They're heavier, they're less likely to evaporate. They tend to hang around. Your top notes tend to leave early, middle hangs out for a while. Your base notes are the longest things, or the last thing to go. So they could be on your skin for many hours, even up to a day. Cool. Does that make sense? Cool. So let's talk now about your powerhouse of projection, right? Your scent cloud. So what is it that causes that? So we talked about base notes being the longevity, right? Because they hang around. Now we're going to switch and look at the top of the middle notes. These are the ones that go fairly quickly, right? Anywhere from 20 minutes to a few hours, typically, kind of depending on what the fragrance is. Right? But those are ones that tend to leave the scent a lot sooner. So that causes a lot of projection in that case as it's leaving the scent. You also want to think about the ingredients you're using. So there's a lot of synthetics out there nowadays. There's a lot of aroma chemicals, stuff like that. And one of the things that they do is they give off kind of a diffused note, right? So it kind of carries in the air. So when you use these type of notes, it transfers more into the air, right? So that gives you kind of more of that projection as it goes forward. The next thing you want to think about is the composition and lift the notes give each other. So think about a very well blended, well crafted fragrance. The notes are going to support each other. So they're going to help each other. They're going to blend together and they're going to lift each other up and kind of present that projection on out. The last thing you want to think about is what causes the scent to emit, right? So when you spray it on, you're spraying scent in oil. The oil evaporates. The scent stays. Now, as you perspire through the day, right, you get warm through the day, it starts evaporating that scent. So that moisture, that warmth starts putting your projection out as well. So those are the things that are going to cause a bigger projection. Right, so we've talked through longevity, we've talked through projection. Let's talk through silage, right? So we talked about that being kind of that scent trail as you walk in or out of a room. So what is causing that? So this one, think about things or notes that have both longevity and they diffuse well into the air. So they got the combination of the two. So maybe a little bit of a heavier note, bass type note, middle to bass note, but it also diffuses really well in the air. So those together give me that ability, right? So with that, I end up with a wake of fragrance, right? So on that, I get a good blend of overall notes that are together. I've got some ones that diffuse really well into the air. I've got some good, really bass notes with good longevity. So all of those in a combination are going to give me a nice fragrance trail. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, so now that we've said that, let's talk about something else, right? Weaker fragrances are not always a bad thing. I do get a lot of, I wish it lasted longer, or I wish it projected more. And that's a fair thing to say. But you also need to look at what you're using it for and where you're wearing it. Because there are times you don't want that, right? So let's say, for example, my personal preference is I don't want to stand out in a crowd. I'm probably going to go for something with less projection, less silage. Maybe I want longer, longevity, maybe not. Let's say that I'm at a workplace. I definitely don't want to overpower my coworkers, right? So I want to tone that down a little bit. Or let's say you're in an intimate setting, it's date night. Right, date night will almost always work out so much better if you've got kind of an intimate, sweet type fragrance that your special someone can snuggle up to, right? So you don't want that to be super loud. Another one would be hot weather. So right now, as we're talking through this, it is July. It's high 90s here in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So hot weather, you're better off with one that is not as potent if you're going to be out in the heat. So the best, and I'll use air quotes, the best strength it's subjective, right? It kind of depends on what you're doing with it, what you want to do with it, and what you're going to be doing, right? So anyway, that kind of breaks it all down into, what causes a fragrance to be strong, right? We talked through longevity, we talked through projection, we talked through silage, right? Those things define what they are. We talked about how they're influenced with the notes and the fragrance that they've got. So now that we've gone through all that, let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite powerhouses in your more intimate sets? What do you guys like? What works for you? So thank you again for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything coming up next. Sound good? Thanks, guys. Take care.